Sorry I'm late, Dyl. I had to take shelter. It's storming really bad here.
Oh no, is everything okay?
I mean, yeah, we're all okay, but it's raining cats and dogs.
Okay, I'm just glad you're okay.
I mean, it's literally raining cats and dogs here. The tornado hit a pet store, and it's raining birds and lizards also. Just a few minutes ago, it hit the zoo, and sucked up a lion, and now it's a roarnado. It's a roarnado. Dylan, it's a roarnado.
No, I get it. Stop. Just stop. No more. No, please. Come on. I can't believe you had me. You had me for a second. Like I actually believe. Whatever. Let's just start the show. Framewreck or whatever.
What a story, Mark.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Framewreck, a show where we talk about so bad they're good movies, or maybe just so bad they're bad movies, or good movies that everyone else thinks is bad that we want to reacclaim. We do all of the above, but we talk about bad movies, or what everyone perceives to be bad movies. And today we're taking a look 10 years back as part of my 2013 retrospective. 10 years later, I combined the phrase into one. Looking at movies from 10 years ago. So we're about to have a picture this episode where we're talking about the best picture nominees of that year. We've been doing some Marvelous Movie Monday commentaries on Iron Man 3 and Thor the Dark World. And this is our episode devoted to the films of 10 years ago, specifically the bad films, specifically Sharknado, which is the topic of conversation, a topic that Matt and I have danced around for quite a while. And Matt, I'm sure, will tell us why we haven't done Sharknado, or why we weren't going to do Sharknado necessarily. But Matty Chapmond, Matty Daddy, how you doing? What's up? I haven't introduced you yet, but I wanted to get the premise out there so people know what they're watching. How you doing, Matt? And are you excited for Sharknado?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited to talk about this. We hadn't talked about it yet, for a few reasons. First of all, the main reason is that we like our bad movies to come by it honestly. If a movie is in on the joke, it's not really material for our show usually. But
Yeah.
You were doing this 2013 retrospective, and I was like, hey, let's check this movie out, because I had never seen it. Because I had heard so much. Excuse me. I had heard so much about it, and people had talked about it. But by the time it settled down a little bit, it kind of seemed like the movie knew what it was doing, especially if you consider all the sequels that they had made with it.
Right. And the sequels, I would say, are a little bit more regardless of this first one, which we will decide later, is it in on the joke or is it not? By the time they made the second one, it's okay, so obviously people like this because they think it's awful, so now we're in on the joke. And by 5, it's they're completely in on the joke. They're not making this legitimately thinking they're making the greatest franchise ever. They're not making the sequel to Sharknado thinking they're making Godfather 2 or Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. Just two of the best sequels that came to mind. But it's like that. So I don't. Yeah, I totally see the idea where it's maybe they're in on the joke, and maybe this isn't really so bad it's a good movie. Maybe it's just a purposely bad movie. Yeah, for sure. But this one, it's a little different because it's the origin. It's before we knew what Sharknado was as a brand, more so than as a just singular film.
Well, and now that I have seen it, I can tell you that I think it's right for this show. I think that you can see it in the way the movie is made, that I don't think anybody thought they were making The Godfather, but they definitely thought. I mean, it's a sci-fi original movie. They often make ridiculous premises, and I applaud them for that. I think that I'm glad there is a place that people can just be just wacky with these things, even if they're not great. Just have a place to just unload these ridiculous premises that maybe won't ever make it into a theatrical release. So I'm glad that exists. But and they've got their fair share of Sharktopus and Lavalantula and stuff like that.
Pastor and all.
Yeah, they've got their share of that type of movie, and I again, I'm glad that they have that. So, but This one, and I've seen a bunch of them because I enjoy sitting down to watch those occasionally. This one, while they do understand that the premise is ridiculous. They don't appear to be as in on the joke. At least not everybody appears to be as in on the joke as a lot of those stuff, like the Velocipastors and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, people are taking this one seriously, and I do agree. That's what kind of like fits the show well, is because it's like they weren't setting out, I don't think, to make a bad movie. Obviously, it's produced by the Asylum, which has like notoriety of being like the studio that makes all these mockbusters. They're the ones that made the Top Gun Maverick spinoff pre-COVID when it was about to come out, and then it got delayed. By the time the Top Gun Maverick movie actually got released, they had made a sequel to their spoof of Top Gun Maverick already. It was a big thing, but like they're a studio known for making bad movies. So like you could say maybe they were in on the joke as a producer or distributor, but I think Sci-Fi, like that's where I think it goes the extra step, because it's like we're not just this bad studio making a bad movie, but Sci-Fi, they don't want to put out crap. This is 3 years removed from the premiere of Walking Dead on their channel, or that's AMC, but it's like the same idea. Like Sci-Fi shows and this type of horror and all that, it's big right now, and they want to probably put forward a good product, even if the Asylum is producing it, and they get some names attached. They're actual genuine named actors in this thing too, which I think also separates it from some other movies. Like the fact that the actors are taking it seriously is a big part of it, even if the creators aren't always taking it seriously. I think certain departments are, and that's what makes it fitting.
Yes, I agree. And I'd like to circle back to that in a second, but I would like to address the Asylum. I worked in a video store for a long, long time. And I can't tell you how many of those those movies that were made to capitalize on a big blockbuster came through the video store. So many. The big one that I always remember was there was a movie called Transmorphers that came out the same year the first live action Transformers movie came out. Yeah. And we had so many people bring it back angry. So basically so many grandmas bring it back angry. Right. Like my grandson said, this is not the movie, that we ended up having to like put a sign on it. That was like, this is not Transformers.
Yeah. Granted, if they picked up the real Transformers movie, would they have been any happier? That's a discussion for another day. Maybe the first one, maybe they'd be happy, but the rest of them, that's another story. But yeah, it's interesting because like it feels like a bygone era, the Asylum thing, because they're made for video, direct to video, like direct to stores almost. And nowadays, like that stuff just gets dumped on demand. But like you barely scroll by it unless you're on like Tubi or something. Like really, those movies tend to get more hidden nowadays, to where I think it's kind of cool that Sci-Fi put this one out there as like a big marquee release, because maybe we don't even know what Sharknado is if it just ends up on some demand thing. Because this is, I think, past the prime era of video and DVD and stuff, or at least video stores. Like this is the tail end of Blockbuster. And, I'm glad Sci-Fi did put this out, even if it is, very evidently something ridiculous and silly on this artifice. I really do like the fact that we just have access to this by itself, because I feel like a lot more movies, as the years go on, movies like this get kind of thrown away and no one even can discover them because we don't have these video stores. What I mean?
The carnival model that the Asylum worked under before doesn't work anymore, because the idea is that by the time someone realizes their mistake, they've already purchased it. That doesn't work on a click. Like you click on a movie, oh, this isn't the right movie, you click off of it. You're not making the money off of that. So it is a bygone thing where that the carnival snake oil, like the snake oil salesman of movies, the Asylum, no longer has that outlet anymore, which is a little sad, but luckily for the grandmas out there trying to make their grandchildren happy, luckily they no longer have to buy these movies.
Yeah, and it's not like they're getting rid of like actually good stuff, like a lot of Disney Plus originals that are really, really charming. It's not like they're getting rid of. Oh wait, they are getting rid of those. Sorry, that's another tangent for another time.
Oh no,
it's not like they're taking Netflix originals that you may have fallen in love with and just pulling them from Netflix to where there's no media at all to find them anywhere. No, sorry, that's a rant for another time. But let's get back on Sharknado.
All right. Well, let's talk about Sharknado then. It was written by Thunder Levin and directed by Anthony C. Ferrante.
Whoa,
It was
whoa,
made
whoa, whoa,
for.
whoa, whoa. I didn't look up any of this. You're telling me the guy who made Sharknado's name is Thunder, and the
Yeah.
lead character's name is Finn,
Yes.
spelled like the fin of a shark. Okay, just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify because I just found that information out for the first time. Thunder is the guy's name who made the movie, and it can't be irony. It can't. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be. I don't even think his real name's Thunder, even if it is. It is. Wow. Wow. Sorry.
Yeah, no, there it is.
Wow.
I didn't even think about that until you mentioned that. Yeah, no, for sure.
Like that'd be like if a person named Storm created Halle Berry's character in X-Men. I like work with a girl named Storm, so I'm like, oh, I always make jokes. I'm like, oh, so with Halle Berry, like that's what that just did to me. I kind of had a little brain blowage right there. So yeah.
Ian Ziering, who plays Finn, and yes, it's Ian. I know it's spelled Ian, but it's pronounced Ian. He's from Beverly Hills 90210 for people my age.
Well, hey, listen, I don't know if you know this. I am named after Luke Perry's character from 90210. All right.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So honestly, I think this is one of the funniest things. I put this on. I'm at my parents' house for the weekend, for Memorial Day weekend when we're filming this, and I put it on last night to watch it for this. And my mom goes, "Oh my God, Ian's in this. I love Ian." She's like a go through the channels at night trying to find something, and she'll stumble on sci-fi sometimes, and then usually whatever's good on sci-fi, it'll end and it'll roll like a Sharknado. So she's seen this movie. She's like, "Oh, you're gonna love it. Ian's in it." And I'm like, "Am I gonna love it because Ian's in it, or are you gonna love it because Ian's in it?" And I'm gonna watch it because Ian's in it, and it reminds you of Luke Perry, who sadly passed away, but whose character I am named after. But yeah, I just think that's so funny, and I actually am friends with Ian's nephew, so like it's a big thing. It's a big like.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, I did a show with Ian's nephew Adam, so like it's this weird like connection I have with Ian Ziering in particular that I have multiple avenues to I have multiple degrees to Ian Ziering. So yes, it's not just your generation, Matt. It's your generation and me.
Oh, well, Ian Ziering's nephew is going to like what I had to say about Ian Ziering in this movie, surprisingly.
Yes, and I was gonna refrain from giving any opinion because, like, you know, it's a friend, it's a family of a friend. But if I have something positive to say, I'll say it, and it's positive stuff. Like, there's nothing negative I would have said regardless for this.
Right. Well, Ian Ziering only took this role to qualify for SAG's health insurance for his family. So which is lucky. I think that part of the sell of this story of this movie, because it got a lot of traction on Twitter. It aired and a bunch of people, it just started trending on Twitter. People talking about, oh my God, can you believe this? But it wasn't just, oh my God, Sharknado. It's about sharks in a tornado. It's, oh my God, Sharknado, starring Ian Ziering from 90210. It was like a double whammy of oh, he's coming back, and he's coming back with this. Like that was so yeah. I think a lot of the success owes to Ian Ziering and taking this role for SAG purposes.
Yeah, and it's not solely Ian either. Like if I was watching this 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, it's the dad from Home Alone because John Hurd's in it too. It's like I think you're getting like a couple corners of every avenue. A kid 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, it's Tara Reid from American Pie. Like I think it has enough stars that are notable for the generations it needs to grasp. They're not necessarily A-list actors, but they are enough for the generations they're trying to pull in, which is the 90210 generation, the American Pie generation, and the Home Alone generation. You know, so there you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I will say, speaking of Tara Reid, I hope none of her cousins or nephews are listening.
I am not friends with any of Tara Reid's relatives, so you can trash her as much as you want, and I may join that bandwagon. So we'll see.
Not to show all my cards here, but yeah. Okay. But yeah, so that is the production notes I have here for this. Let's get into what makes this movie great. I'd like to start with the premise of the movie,
being the Sharknado,
the titular Sharknado, which it starts out as a shark hurricane, I guess. Like it's which that's one of the funniest things. Okay, so much of this is funny just on the surface. I can tell you, I laughed out loud so many times at things they did not, I think, intend for me to laugh out loud at, and that's kind of where when I was saying before about how this movie doesn't appear to be in on the joke, is that there was comic relief. John Hurt's character is completely comedic relief. There are those didn't make me laugh. The things that made me laugh were not the things they wanted to make me laugh, and that's the mark of a movie that's not in on its own joke.
Right.
So much of what made me laugh is how they would. This was obviously filmed on a very bright, sunny day in LA, where it doesn't rain barely at all, where it wasn't raining, and they put the same rain effect over the thing. It cut every time it cut to a new scene. It was the same rain effect, so it's like the scene was moving, but the rain wasn't. And then it would do the rain effect, and then it would cut to a scene of stock footage of some flood that was obviously not shot on the same day. It was obviously not the same location. I loved that. Every time it happened, it made me happy.
Lots of stock footage.
It was so
lots
jarring.
of stock footage to the point where I don't know if they filmed any of this film outside. Like, I really don't know. Even the stuff where they're in the car driving, like, it's very clear that they made it as bright as they could so you couldn't see out the window. And all the camera work is so tight on them and so like claustrophobic almost, and there's so much editing. So this is the worst edited film I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's over the place, but it's to mask the fact that they don't have the resources, which I get. Like, you have to work around it the best you can, but like, then simplify it and don't make a movie that's mostly about the weather if you can't shoot stuff outside with rain effects. Because like, you can make rain effects, like it might be a little expensive, but then sure, then don't hire 3 stars that are probably going to cost a lot of money. Hire 1 and then save the rest on the rain effects. I don't know. It's just very funny. Yeah.
I can say they did film this outside, I don't know that they filmed it outside of the back studio lot of wherever.
Yeah, they weren't going around the streets of LA. They weren't filming in real rain.
Oh no. But it's funny because occasionally you can tell they're on a studio backlot. The most egregious, and it's most egregious because they did not have to include this, is when they're driving. One point where they're driving the truck, and like it's getting erratic, and I don't remember the exact scenario of this, but it's like very erratic, and the rain's coming down, and everything's flooded, and then it suddenly cuts to a shot of what is obviously a building on a studio backlot.
Yeah.
And then cuts back to them, and then cuts to like this crash that they have, which doesn't feature any of those buildings. I don't know why they included that shot of the studio backlot. It added nothing. It was like only to serve to say, this is where we shot this.
Yeah, it's like trying to build atmosphere that's not even needed. All the atmosphere you need is a beach to establish sharks, and then a street in LA to establish Los Angeles, and then the bar, and then the car. Like, it really only needs 4 locations, yet they try to world build and expand and show more than they actually have to. And the sense of geography in this movie, I mean, I know we're still on the premise, but just the sense of geography, it's jarring. That first shark encounter where they're on like the jet ski and stuff, like, and they look like they're only like a few feet out from shore, but then it cuts and it looks like they're in the middle of the ocean, but then it cuts, they're like back on the shore, but then they're driving like they're going somewhere, so obviously they can't be that close to shore. Like, the sense of geography in this film is not there. Like, you cannot tell where anyone is in a given place from one shot to the next, and it's jarring. It's quite jarring to where it's like, as silly as this premise may be, just the actual filming is just so bad that it's like, it's almost funny from that aspect alone, because I think they were trying to take that. I think they were actually like, look at this cool editing technique, but it's awful. It's awful.
It is bad. Speaking of geography and where they were in the water, the number of people who were standing in 1, maybe 2 feet of water who got chomped down by a shark that we couldn't see. They were in such shallow water when they were getting attacked by these sharks. And I know the premise here is that the sharks come onto land, but that's not what was happening here. Right. Sharks were being driven up, and they were somehow sneaking up on them while they were in this much water. Like it was just their feet were covered and they were grabbing them by the feet, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's like,
These
why
are
did
some
they have to?
stealthy sharks.
Why did they have to evacuate the entire beach if the NATO part hadn't happened yet? It was just sharks in the water. Why does the entire beach have to evacuate? They can't get onto the sand. We haven't gotten to the point where they're in the air yet. At least not in this setting. Like in Jaws, they all got to the shore. They didn't make them go home from the beach itself. Like they could still hang out on the sand. Like I don't know why the sand was the problem. Were they burrowing under the sand somehow? Did they get little like talons and shit? No. It's just really funny because I'm like they haven't even gotten to the NATO part. If it was sharks flying in the air from the get-go, like evacuate, go inside, but it's like all they need to do is come out of the water. They don't need to evacuate the whole beach, Carl. Like chill.
Right.
I don't
know. Ironically, Thunder Levin's understanding of weather is bad. Just very bad.
Come to learn.
He needs to learn about his culture, I think. But
just like I can't really tell you the difference between a dill pickle and another pickle. It's sad. I'm not a pickle expert, as my name would suggest. So that's an example. Yes. Matt is an expert on Batman, so I can't use you as an example. But you know,
oh man, there you are. Now, but okay. First of all. First thing I would like to address is that how this person, the writer, and really everybody, it's not Thunder Levin's sole responsibility to make sure that this all, pardon the pun, holds water. There are so many people whose eyes go over this script who are in charge of making sure that the effects look good. Every person who looks at this movie is responsible for the fact that for all the weird mistakes that it has. Number one, that his understanding of how floods work is really weird.
Yeah. And just the idea that they're driving in a flood in the first place. Like my mom was watching it with me and was like,
right,
they can't drive through that. How do you drive through that? Like they're underwater.
The fact that there was a threat that they were driving, but there was also a threat of sharks next, like near them, like where they were. There were sharks apparently bumping the bottom of their vehicle, and it's not like they were in like this huge like monster truck or whatever. Like it didn't have a lift kit on it. This car, like this truck, yeah. It was just a regular truck. Yeah. But there were like sharks bumping underneath them. I don't understand how they thought how they were supposed to have been driving on this. I also love that their entire house, or Tara Reid's house, gets flooded, just like completely flooded, waist deep water. And then, but you go out to the driveway of that very house and get in the car and drive away. That kind of stuff. Apparently this storm was just following them because they'd stop for long periods of time and do things and then leave, and then that's when the storm would start moving again with them.
like the scene with the dog. It's like I was like, oh my god, no, they have to save this dog, and then the dog finally gets out and I'm like, oh, the dog doesn't have to swim. Okay, great, because I was worried the dog would get out of the car, jump in the water, and have to doggy paddle, and I'd be crying in peril, worried for this dog. But then the dog just runs to its owner. I'm like, oh, so this part isn't flooded, but that part is. It's the inconsistency you're talking about. It's like, oh, is it all of a sudden they can run on dry land here, but then all of a sudden it's raining sharks and cats and dogs.
Yeah, it's the inconsistency with that is insane. The fact that he would be able to understand how the flood that Finn would somehow be in tune with how the flood is working because nobody understands waves like him.
Yeah. Finn understands Finn, you know. Finn knows Finn.
Yeah. Finn knows. Speaking of Finn, just a real quick thing. There's one point in the movie, and I realized later that this must not have been what he said, but there was one point where his friend called him Finn and then said his last name, and it sounded like he said Chevron, and I was like, Chevron's just a pointy symbol that looks kind of like a fin. I was like, that's a genius name. And then I found it Shepherd, and I don't know why I heard Chevron, but now I think his name should have been Finn Chevron because that would have been a genius, just a genius name.
There you go.
Anyway, that don't need to talk about that anymore. But another thing about the weather in this. Okay, I'm from Oklahoma. I know about tornadoes. I've experienced my fair share of tornadoes. They've been a part of my life for my entire life. This person, he obviously doesn't understand how tornadoes work at all.
No.
Number one. Number two, okay, the idea that you would drop a bomb into a tornado and then just the storm would stop doesn't make any sense. Now, I will say this. There is evidence to suggest that a well-placed explosion might stop a single tornado, might disrupt the rotation from a single tornado to stop it. Of course, the problem is that you could never be able to ensure that the bomb stayed in it, and it would probably just blow something else up because that's how tornadoes work. They suck things in and throw them. But that is theoretically possible. Tornadoes cause explosions all the time. That's just something that happens. If they go over a gas station, they're going to cause an explosion and it doesn't stop them. So explosions are not necessarily going to stop it. You would have to be extremely precise, exact explosion in the exact right place in order for it to possibly disrupt the rotation. Yeah. It's very unlikely that you would be able to get to three of them. But the biggest thing is that a tornado, this person seems to think that a tornado is the storm, like it is the weather event, and it's not.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. Yeah, because I always thought, because I have a lot of family in Florida, so I always thought hurricanes happen in wetter areas and tornadoes in drier areas. Now, that may be different. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, but as soon as I heard this, I was like, wouldn't it be Sharknadado? Because isn't it coming from the water? Like that was my perception, but let me know, because I don't know if that's correct in assuming
they're different. I'm not a expert on hurricanes. I can tell you they're different. Like it's not right. It does have there's a similarity to, they do revolve in rotation, but it is a different thing. It's not a matter of dryness or wetness, because there are certain types of tornadoes that happen more in arid climates versus ones that happen in moister climates. Like there's different types of tornadoes that happen. So it's not necessarily that. What happens with a tornado, and this is and I don't want to take up a whole lot of time. So this is a very rudimentary explanation, and it's not going to be exact, so don't come at me. But I can tell you this. A tornado happens. A tornado is a result of a supercell. A supercell produces a tornado, which is like a storm producing rain. The rain is not the storm. It's not the storm. It's a result of the storm. A tornado is a result of a supercell. So a supercell is when basically a high pressure and a low pressure line meet, or more accurately, probably like a dry line meets a wet line, or a cold line, where they meet. And then when that happens, it'll cause a rotation. The rotation will produce a tornado. The rotation doesn't stop because the tornado stops. The rotation is still happening in the air. Mm-hmm. And so blowing up a tornado to disrupt it, if you possibly could, would still leave a supercell in the air, in the sky, rotating, probably to produce another tornado very shortly thereafter. So it's not going to stop the event. It might stop the specific tornado, that one event that came down. So that is the one of the things where I'm just watching that. Yeah. And I'm like, it's like, and they treated the tornadoes like they were just like, had minds of their own, like they were just like independent, just kind of hanging out. They weren't part of the same situation. Right. They were just like buddies going out on the town. That was funny. I like how this is this is not specifically weather related, but it is logic situation. I mean, it's weather related because it happens as a result of the tornado. But how when the Hollywood sign gets lifted up and thrown, how
man.
every letter of that goes to the exact same place or the exact same like area. Like every single one flies by those people. It's like, okay, well,
I was gonna say more on that later. Just to foreshadow.
We'll more on that later. But that was a very targeted. That tornado definitely targeted that person. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But so the weather, that's the Thunder's understanding of the weather is, but yes, it did start out as a hurricane, and it was for a good portion of the movie before it didn't even turn into a tornado until like later in the movie. It seemed like it started out for a good portion, it was just a tornado that they were running, or the hurricane and a flood they were running from. What was the other thing with the weather? This is not his misunderstanding of weather, but the questionable character choice or logic, which was that Nova, when Finn shut down the bar and was like, everybody go home, everybody leave, it's whatever, come back on Taco Tuesday, which was very important. When he had everyone leave, Nova was like, I'm not going anywhere. And he's like, why? She's like, because if this place blows down, I don't have a place to work. I'm like, what does you being here have to do? Do you think, does she think she's going to stop it? Like does she think she's going to keep the storm from blowing the thing down? If you die, you'll have nowhere to work either. Like, that's
right. Yeah, that's a given.
But yeah, her logic there was, in fact, she had some of my favorite lines, and we'll get more into that later as well.
Yeah, can I just mention one thing? While we got to talk about the sharks, and I think this is one of the big talking points, is because like it's made for $2 million, so like you're never gonna get realistic sharks. I think it's an interesting choice though to make them CG and not like some cool puppetry, or I don't really know what the good alternative would have been. We've seen the worst version of this being Birdemic, where it's quite literally cut and paste this awful bird. There's actually no sort of rendering or texture 3D at all. But it's still pretty bad, all the shark stuff here. And it's really interesting to see, though, like those moments where there's just so many sharks just thrown all over the place. And they look so fake, to where even if a 5-year-old watched this, I don't think he'd get scared, or she gets scared, or they'd get scared, because like it's just not scary. Like there's nothing convincing about the effects of the shark. The shark in Jaws looks incredibly fake, but the way they film it makes it look real and feel. Whereas here, it does not look or feel real, and it's ridiculous to the point where this feels like Birdemic with a better budget, but still like Birdemic with a better budget. It's still like crappy animal effects. It's not the birds, it's not Jaws. But those sharks are so funny. They're so.
Speaking of Birdemic, I wonder if I've noticed a trend with our with movies that we watch, and I wonder if there's a correlation between movies that mention climate change heavily and really bad movies. Yeah. I think climate change is an important thing to talk about. I think it's very important. I don't know why so many bad movies get made about it.
Right. Yeah.
But as far as that was just a one offshoot there. But as far as the sharks go, I know that the idea is that there are a lot of them, and I think that if you have I think the shot of a tornado far away with sharks going around it is effective enough that you don't have to show us as many sharks close up as you showed us. Like there were way too many. Like make some good ones and show those. Like or show very few, or some like it's just so many bad sharks on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is the point, but you could allude to the bad shark, how many sharks there are, without showing us so many bad sharks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you exactly hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's hard to make a movie like this because this is the type of movie that needs a big budget, and not every movie needs a big budget. Like you could do, some movies without a budget easy. Like you could do a whole climate change courtroom drama for half this budget and make it amazing. But when you're making a movie about global warming and climate change, but need to like emphasize a point with a lot of weather and mass destruction and shit, you need a budget. And this is just not one of those movies, regardless of if it was a good script or not. Like if the effects don't hold up, it's be convincing regardless of how good the performances are, how good the script is. And I think that's another of this fails, and again, they try to dance around it as best they can with the editing and the cinematography, but then the ones with the sharks in them, they linger those shots. It's like those are the ones they decide to linger, not the ones where they're just like in the car. It's like the car, it's like has to go bounce to face to face to face to face to face. That's the stuff you should leave the camera on for and cut with the sharks, if that's what you're gonna do.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Okay, let's move on to what else makes this movie great, and I'd like to talk about the dialogue of it in this movie, or at least the writing in general of this movie.
Yeah.
The number of people who were asked how do you know so much about blank? After they had only displayed a very limited knowledge of that thing, is insane. Oh, that's a tiger shark. How do you know so much about sharks? Shark Week.
Shark Week. Okay. Yeah.
If you go to this, and he says a couple highway turnoffs, so then you'll get into you'll be able to you'll be right in Beverly Hills. How do you know so much about Beverly Hills? He doesn't. Maybe he does. That didn't demonstrate any reasonable knowledge about, other than he has visited there.
And there's no way that the ocean has washed inland that far.
What makes you an expert on Beverly Hills, George?
That's where I live.
Hey Matt,
you're there before.
Matt, you're wearing headphones. How do you know so much about headphones? Like it's like
Exactly.
you really don't. I mean, maybe you do, but like it's like that. It's like just because you have said one thing doesn't make you the expert. I don't know.
Exactly. There was a lot of that kind of stuff that really made me laugh. I said Nova had a lot of lines that really wasn't just her. So many people had so many bad lines in this movie that like, oh God. And I don't want to step on your worst lines of dialogue, which if I come across it, you can talk about it. I don't have a whole lot
mine, if it helps, mine is a monologue. So if you're going to say a monologue, don't say it.
Okay. There's the worst. Here's the thing. I did not choose this as my worst line of dialogue, but it is the worst line of dialogue in that it is it's just the worst. Like, come on. Like, it wasn't funny. It wasn't whatever. And that's after Tara Reid's boyfriend gets eaten, and someone off screen, I assume it's the Australian guy, I don't know, someone, maybe it's just the director saying it out loud, someone off screen says, it must be that time of the month, as the blood is all in the water. It's like, come on, man.
No, it's a cheap shot. And I gotta say, that scene in particular, I don't know, we didn't get a lot of established, like, is this guy someone she actually really loves or not? But like, no tears are shed. Barely. There's really, it kind of just moves on to the next thing. And this is the thing in a lot of movies that I don't like, not necessarily bad movies, but like just the fact that something will happen and then the very next second, because there's other stuff going on, they don't have time to mourn or grieve or at least feel effect of it. And that's something I'll give props to James Cameron for Avatar: The Way of Water. A big death happens, they grieve it, and then they go into the final act. Like, you need time. And it's just like, this guy got eaten in like a violent, if not the most violent manner of the movie. Limbs ripped off, and then it's like they're sitting on the stairs. All right, how do we get out? What is our plan? And I'm like, what? Like, I see how you look at my husband. Like, all these things, or my dad. Like, the guy just died, whether you like him or not. Like, this shit. And it's things like that where it's like, I feel like these moments don't have the time to really sink their teeth in. No pun intended. You know what I mean? Like, it just goes on to the next.
I think that speaks to the. I mean, it speak to the writing in general, which is kind of where I wanted to segue this into. We can talk about more quotes in a little bit, but it's kind of where I wanted to segue this into anyway. Is that this movie seems like it was written without a plan, number one, and it did not get a second draft. So each thing that happens, it seems like the writer was unaware that it was going to happen until it happened. Like almost like he surprised himself with it. So, and by what I mean by that is things like the slow reveal of his family members, as though even he was unaware they existed.
Like, oh, you didn't mention you had a son, or you didn't mention you had a wife, and by extension, also the relationships. The idea that in the beginning you think she's like, oh, I know you're my boss, but I like you, and it's like, oh, it's gonna be Ian and this young lifeguard. And then it's like, no, this ends up being now a story about wanting to reconnect his old marriage that fell apart. Okay, and then it's also about him connecting with his daughter again, who doesn't believe in him anymore. Okay, great. And then the son's introduced, and now he has a thing with this woman that was trying to go after Ian earlier, so she couldn't get the dad, so now she's going for the son. Like the relationships are all over the place too, because I feel like they introduce a character and they're like, oh wait, let's that romantic interest. Oh, but we already wrote that, so instead of rewriting the earlier part, let's just keep what we have and just take it in a new direction. It's like that's something you develop maybe in like 3 seasons of television, maybe some in a couple in the first season, maybe they end up with someone else in the third season, but not in the span of an hour and 20 minutes. You can't do all that relationship juggling that fast. You just can't. Well,
you could do something like that, but you got to sow those seeds, and that's what I mean by it didn't need a second draft. Like once they knew where this was going to go, have some seeds earlier planted. Like it seems like the this is the weird thing. It even seems like at the beginning, like that he's flirting with that girl that's on the boat or that on the board that ends up being the first one to be eaten by the shark. Like it feels like that was the intention, was that was going to be love interest, and then I guess decided to eat her, and then it turns into that Nova is his new love interest. And it seems like it's out of nowhere. Suddenly she's hugging him, and he's like, "Whoa!" And she's like, "Am I too young for you?" or something like that. Like,
yeah.
And then that's weird. And then he gets a phone call, and she's like, and he's like, "It's his wife," and it's like, his wife. He has a wife. Like, oh my gosh, it's his wife. Like, okay, how
and they live fairly close. It's not like it's this estranged long thing. Like, no, she's still in the area. Like,
yeah, 6.6 miles. In fact, even though she seems to think it's 100 miles, I don't understand that. Why? Like, yeah, and so she's like, oh, I didn't know the thing. Okay, well, that's fine. Like, maybe he's keeping a secret. Like, that's kind of weird. Like, maybe he's into her too, and that's why he never mentioned it. But he never shows any interest in her. But the interest that she shows continues to the fact that every time someone new is introduced, she almost seems jealous and angry that she wasn't told about this. So then the daughter's there's like, wait, I didn't know you had a daughter. You have a daughter? Oh my gosh, do you have a daughter? And then she's like, okay, that's fine. She has a daughter. And then the whole like weird romantic tension from her side only, never from his side, continues until they meet the son. And it's like, oh my gosh, you have a son? What? You have a son? And then it's like, and then it immediately switches and goes to her having a romantic thing with the son and never mentioning the thing again. And then at the end of this movie, we get a kiss between Ian Ziering and Tara Reid, even though there was never, not 1 ounce of buildup. In fact, she was awful the entire time. At no point was she not awful in this movie until they kiss. And it's like, where did that come from?
I couldn't even think about the fact that the relationship didn't make sense. I was just fixated on the fact that he had literally just Leonardo DiCaprio revenanted himself out of a shark and is covered in guts and blood, and she's sucking his face. And granted, hey, people have kinks. People do whatever. But like this man just literally his shark goo all over him. It's like you're gonna get salmonella. Like I don't know if that's true, but you know, like it's gross. I'm like, this isn't a sushi bar. This is not raw fish. This is blood and guts. Like, come on. Like maybe in the heat of love, maybe if I fall in love ever again, like I will know that moment where it's like I would kiss you even if you had shark blood and guts all over your lips. But as a person who's not currently in love with anyone besides my childhood crush Ashley Tisdale, I was watching it thinking I would never do that to anyone. Like I'd never kiss anyone with all the blood and guts all over their face. But maybe that's just my cynical side. I don't know. But it disturbed me. And then the other two are kissing too with all the guts and stuff. And meanwhile, there's shark guts and rain and everything. Everyone's wet and gross and sweaty. And I don't know. Ugh. No thanks.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was gross. There is a point. She does reach up and wipe his mouth before kissing, but that does nothing. But
Great.
that does.
Yeah, you're
like,
spreading the germs around even more.
I'm going to tell you, I'd like to kiss you. Please go shower, and then we can kiss after. Like,
yeah, that would be like, hey, like first off, ask for consent, and then be like, all right, now go shower. Like that'd been funny. I would have laughed. And like that's funny.
Yeah, no, that is funny. Also, it would have been cool if there had been any indication that they might hook up again, because she seems to hate him the whole movie until that moment. But yeah, it's very weird that they never build either of those things, or that they do this weird build. They never build that, then they switch. It would have been nice if there had been setup to any of this, and that any of the setup had gone to the thing. But again, it's Sharknado. It's fine. This does remind me. Speaking of their relationship, Finn and Tara Reid. I'm not sure she has any dialogue in this movie that isn't yelling at him. Maybe once or twice talking to the daughter, but most of the time just telling him how awful he is the whole time. I do love, though, and maybe this is his little FU to her, but I love that there's that scene when right before like the final showdown with the Sharknado, where they go into like that hardware store, or maybe not hardware, wherever they go into, and they're looking at the like chainsaws and stuff. And there's just like a table full of chainsaws, and they're looking through, and he's like, "Oh yeah." And then he picks up a hedge trimmer, and he's like, "Do you think you could make that work?" And she's like, "I think I can make that work."
You think you can make this work?
Yeah, I'll make it work.
No, you can't. It's a hedge trimmer. Definitely pick up one of the many chainsaws that are sitting there, not the stupid hedge trimmer. He like, I guess like he has to know that that's not a good weapon, right? Like, and she doesn't take it, so I guess it maybe off screen he was like, "Gotcha," and then it's fine.
Yeah.
But,
I also love how that moment. It's like we have 15 minutes left, and now we're gonna have a cool down moment where everyone's just kind of chilling in this store. Daughters go on about how disappointed she is in her dad, and everyone's like trying to reassure her, "Oh, but he's got goodness in him." They're trying to kind of reconnect over this chainsaw thing, but like now you're gonna have a cool down, not after like 3 of your main characters have just been like offed, and you just move immediately into the next one. And kind of what you said earlier about the relationships and the introduction of family members, introducing characters. I feel like they just kill off characters. I was watching the first 2 seasons of Game of Thrones on fast forward. I was like, wait, this guy's a main character. He's dead? Especially John Hurt's character. I was like, oh, cool. He can take that bar stool. An unconventional choice of weapon, but it's kind of funny and it's kind of amusing. Smash that window, save that dog, and now you're dead? And like, I get it's a big choice, but it's not like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like we aren't in love with this character to where we're like, oh, what a sacrifice. We're like, what the fuck? I feel like that happens several times.
Was our
The guy with the Hollywood sign, the guy, like all these times, like just people just getting offed and then on, introduced, not on, but you know what I mean. Just so frequently, it was just like give some room to breathe. Nice, like sci-fi. They want to, with commercials, they want this to be under 2 hours. So it's like I don't know.
Right. That's how you can tell the comedy is not intentional in this movie, is because every time they introduce a comedic character, they kill him off immediately, basically.
Right. I'd argue, and we'll get to it in a sec, but I think some of those performances are the best in the movie. Some of the comedic roles, you know.
The bar. I'd like to talk about the bar stool for a second.
Yeah.
That is very interesting, and when he took it, I was like, oh, that's going to be a fun running gag. We're going to do some things with it. It's flooding. He's going to have to stand on it at some point. This is going to be great. It's going to be versatile. He's going to show why he needs that chair there. The literal only thing he did with it was break that window in a very weird way. and then leave it there and then
Which,
die.
spoiler
And get hit
alert,
by
he
sharks.
could have done with any other weapon. You know, you
Yeah.
could have used a bat.
And-
You know, it wasn't
Yeah.
specifically the bar stool that was the reason why that happened. But yeah, you're right.
No, in fact, it was very in terms of weaponry. In this case, it was the least effective thing he could have done because he had to go back and grab it. And it's heavy, and then he has to like hit the side of the thing with it. It's not made for bludgeoning. Like it's a rock or anything anything he could have grabbed would have been better than the bar stool that he ended up grabbing. So I was disappointed. That was the thing about. I figured he was going to die. I figured he was there to get eaten at some point, but because he took the bar stool, I thought he'd last a lot longer because I thought there was going to be a running gag with the bar stool, and there was never a gag, and suddenly it made no sense that he had the bar stool with him. Yeah, it never did anything. Like it was not a joke.
No.
And I don't know why it was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the bar stool. That's how I felt about that. Okay. And I think we covered a lot of this. Was there anything else that made this movie great for you?
I think everything else I have to talk about is kind of within the superlatives, especially one scene in particular. So we can get there later. But I think just in general, I think to answer the question that's been looming on our minds, I think So Bad It's a good movie. Like I really think I'm never not entertained by all this. Like I'm frustrated by the editing and the choppiness, and I'm frustrated by the lack of sense. But like I never once went, "Oh, this is taking forever." This is, if anything, I needed them to give more moments to cool down. So I was definitely entertained. Like I definitely think it's worth the watch, and I definitely don't think it's. I think they did think they were making a better movie than they were. You know what I mean? So.
I think I definitely agree. They thought they were making a better movie than they were. I think it's impossible that some people didn't know like this is going to be garbage, but I think that they didn't care that it was going to be garbage, and they definitely didn't intend for. They didn't set out to make us laugh with the things that made us laugh, and that to me makes this a So Bad It's Good movie.
Yeah, and I think some of the best performances, which we'll talk about in a sec, I think they take. I think they're probably the most self-aware because they, instead of going so silly, go almost so serious that they're like, I'm gonna play this like it's a '90s action blockbuster, and because of that. It actually works because it's like, oh, like we're getting good stuff from this. Like if only it were a better script. Then you have people who go all the way in terms of like, this is silly. I'm going to embrace the silliness. It's the people who aren't doing either, where they're not taking it seriously, but also not taking it silly enough. They're in the middle where it's just like bad dialogue on 50% effort. And that's what I think the worst performances come from is when you're honing it in and delivering the bad dialogue. You got to commit either direction. Either be goofy or be completely serious, but don't be half-assed. I think the half-assery is where it's most glaringly flawed.
I completely agree. And let's get into the superlatives.
I was gonna say that kind of segues us to our worst actors, I bet. But
well, before we do that, I just have one quick thing that I remembered that I forgot to talk about as far as what makes this bad. And it's real quick. It's just the fact that when the with the tornado, so the tornado is what's spinning them around. When they get shot by someone on the ground, they then fall to the ground, suggesting that they are not being carried by the tornado, but that they are flying, and them shooting them causes them no longer be flying, because if it was just the tornado being shot would not affect
because if they had gotten shot but they were getting sucked up in a tornado, they'd just keep going around, they'd just be bloody. Wait, I think you're onto something. I think the sharks control the weather. I think the sharks are flying. Maybe not, but I'd like to believe that.
They created the Sharknado. That's okay. So now we're on a different thing because, again, being from Oklahoma, we have here what are called red devils, and what red devils are is that the dirt here in Oklahoma is red. Most is a red color, and when the wind will pick up, it'll create like this cyclone of red dirt. Some people call them a dust devil. We call them red devils because that's the red dirt. So we're not dealing with tornado from a supercell. We're dealing with essentially a dust devil, except from sharks, the shark devil. The sharks are flying up there and spinning enough that it's creating that dex that's creating the. I'm seeing this. I have to go watch this movie again.
I think you got to watch it again, then rewrite it. I mean, writer strike. So like you can technically still write a script, Matt, because you're non-union. But like you could like write a script and be like, let's do this, and pitches like something big. Pitches like Disney or Warner Brothers and be Sharknado, but like give me $100 million budget and we'll make it work. That would be too much, probably.
Right?
But,
we can remake a movie.
Yeah, we have like
later,
6 movies we still need to remake though. Like we still have 6 movies we personally have wanted to rewrite before that, and Sharknado. But
the fact is that this one's been 10 years, and we know that 10 years is not too soon to remake them.
Yeah, I mean Moana, 5 years. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So the yes, so that's how we're remaking this one. Let's get to our superlatives. Let's talk about. I'm sorry, I know I disrupted your line of thinking there, but for worst actor, who was your worst actor, Dyl?
I think we probably have the same one. It's Tara Reid, just because again, it's that half-assed. Like she's not committing to the bit of the goofiness, but she's also not trying to be Meryl Streep either. She's just kind of half-assing it, like to where I'm like, not working because her dialogue is so bad. But again, it might be just because her dialogue is so bad. But I don't know.
It's not, Dylan. It's not. Because what I have written here is in this and everything, Tara Reid. Because she's a bad actress. I'm sorry. I don't like to say these kind of things. I don't like to make sweeping generalizations. I don't like to call someone a bad actress or a bad actor or talk about them as though they can't do better. I'm sure she can. I have never seen it. I've never seen her be good. I love the American Pie movies. I hate her in the American Pie movies. Right. I don't think I've seen her do a performance where I was like, that's a good performance. Unless she's playing strictly a drunk person with maybe 2 or 3 lines she might do well at. I think she's a bad actress. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop being on this rant. Tara Reid's awful, and she was awful on this.
So I'm looking at her resume now to see what else I've seen her in that I like her in, or not like her in, but like like she was in Urban Legend and all these things, but like I don't remember her particularly, but like I found on her resume
she was the radio DJ on Urban Legend.
From 2011, there was a short film released called The Big Lebowski 2, starring Tara Reid and only Tara Reid playing all the parts, playing the dude, Walter, Donnie, and the Big Lebowski. Because as we know, she did play in the original Big Lebowski, Bunny Lebowski, but she is now playing all the roles in the movie in a like short 3-minute parody trailer of the Big Lebowski 2. That I want to see, but otherwise, yeah, no, not a fan.
I'd like to retract my statement from just a few seconds ago. I need to see that movie. I'm sure she's great in it. That sounds incredible, and I want to watch it. I hope she's I hope she's bad in that. So that's fine. I would like to say that I had forgotten she was Bunny Lebowski until you just mentioned it, and I will say that I do enjoy her as Bunny Lebowski. But I think that is one of the few roles that plays exactly what she is.
Such good writing that it like kind of carries it itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So yeah, Tara Reid is the worst actor in this movie. Although there are a few who just aren't good in this movie. I would say that the daughter is also not very good. I think she probably has the capacity to be good, but I just think that it feels like she was not given a direction at all. Like I think that most of the rest of the actors came on set and played who they play in things.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of her first. She wasn't given direction, so she just kind of said the lines, and that was acceptable. And I don't want to be too hard on her because I feel like she probably has it in her if she were given some direction, but she just was so bland and barely, like, it was hard to have an emotional reaction to her and her dad because she seems so emotionless.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your best actor though, Matt? Elevated
Okay.
material.
Like you, I think that there are several. I think that if you bought in completely, or if you understood what it was, you were the strongest people in this. But for me, so I do think that there are actually a couple people who kind of fit the bill on this. But for me, it's Ian Ziering. I think that he holds this movie together so well. Yep. I think that he could have not cared because he's doing this for his SAG. Once he does it, and he gets his health insurance. Like, that's just the way it is. He could have just phoned it in. He could have played it, been in on the joke and played it like it was silly and like, oh, this is bad. Let's not take it too seriously. It's a movie about sharks in tornadoes. But I think that he actually like played it like an action hero. Like he played it as well as I think Ian Ziering could play the John McClane role.
All right, everybody, listen up. I'm closing the restaurant. Storm's coming and it's coming fast. Get home safe, everybody.
I genuinely could see him having a successful career in this type of movie if it was given a bigger budget. Like I just don't think he'll be given the chance because of the types of project he's doing. I mean, he has done all the sequels here. So, you know what? I guess maybe the SAG thing went further and he actually got a good paycheck out of this. Or maybe it just he enjoys doing these because they're still on movies and they probably don't take long to film. It's $2 million budget. They probably can't film for a while. But yeah, I think he's really good in it. Mine was John Hurd only because I love him.
And there's no way that the ocean has washed inland that far.
What makes you an expert on Beverly Hills, George?
That's where I live.
And I think he's really committing here in the other way. I think he's committing to the goofiness of it. I think he understands it's a little silly and goofy, and he gets a lot of goofy lines to do. But, I kind of feel bad for his character. Look, he travels all this way to a bar, and it's far from his home, but he does it because he, gets free drinks and likes the ladies there. But more so, I think it's because he's lonely, and he has a moment with the dog, and I think he has good moments in here, and he's one of the better written characters, which is why I think he works here. So he would be mine, but Ian's a great pick, and I do think Ian's very good in this.
I agree with John Hurd. I think he does a fine job. I think that it's another situation where he's John Hurd. He can come in and just the fact that he's there is enough, but he seemed to have committed a little bit. Was that his last film?
I was going to say, I have to look. Because he died in 2017. So, probably. No, he did a few after this, but, no, big roles. This is probably the most notable film he did before he died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, he could have phoned it in, but he committed to this bit, and I appreciated that about him. I will also say, now this is not a performance I thought was particularly good necessarily, but I will say that I thought that the girl who played Nova has something. There was something about her that I really enjoyed, despite the fact that she had mostly bad dialogue and she was unfortunately responsible for carrying the mystery family reveals throughout.
Right.
But I felt like she had something. Like there was something about her where I was like, I would enjoy seeing her in other movies.
Yeah. It's like a decent Disney Channel original movie caliber performance where you clearly have the charisma, just you're not given the material to truly show it off, but you've got a good stage presence or screen presence. You've got a good you got a good head on your shoulders.
How come you never talk about that scar right there on your leg?
There's nothing to talk about. Cut myself shaving.
Worst line of dialogue. I'll start with mine. It's very simple. There were a lot of them, and I had a lot to choose from because there's a lot of bad writing. I will say that this one made me laugh out loud, which is why I am choosing it. Both my bad line of dialogue and my Framewreck moment I picked because of the way they unexpectedly made me laugh out loud, and that's the reason I picked them, even if they may not fit the bill quite as perfectly. So this one is after when she's explaining why she hates sharks. she says, "They took my grandfather, so I really hate sharks." And I know that
nothing else.
And I know that it's fine, and that's not like horrendously badly written or anything. It was just like this whole thing, and it's delivered so sincerely. And it's after this thing about how they went out, and six people went out, and only one little girl came back, and that was her. And then she ends it with,
They took my grandfather. So I really hate sharks.
it just hit me at that moment, and I just burst out laughing because it's just what a way to end that whole story about all these people dying. What's your worst line of dialogue?
All right, I'm gonna give you the monologue. So
Okay.
There are interjections with Ian occasionally where he's like saying yeah or like, but I'm gonna ignore that. I'm gonna go with the whole monologue. Mr. Steve Moulton, the convenience store clerk. Here we go. Apocalypse, my ass. This isn't the end of the world. God, not angry with us. The aliens aren't coming down. It's the government. Pause. With a big capital G. They're behind everything. Pause. They know what we buy. They know what we eat. Where we go to the bathroom. They know what kind of cheese I like. Big pause. Pepper Jack. Whispers. They control it all. And the weather, I gotta hand it to them though. Sharks? I never saw that. That monologue, I wish it was a minute long so I could do it at an audition. It's a little too short for that. But like, man, there's some good shit in there. It's the government with a capital G.
Government. Yeah, with a big capital G.
And it's the Pepper Jack. And the Pepper Jack is such like a throwaway. He's like, they know what kind of cheese I like. And then he like thinks about it for a second. He's like, should I say it? And he's like, Pepper Jack.
They know what kind of cheese I like. Pepper Jack. They control it all. And the weather too.
And for such like a throwaway character, that's the moment that I cracked up on. I went, you can't be serious. I loved it though. It was the best thing I saw in that whole movie. It's like the worst line of dialogue, but also the freaking best. Capital G, nice. Pepper Jack. I can't. It's so good.
Pepper Jack.
But let's move on to the train wreck moment of the movie. Mine again. It's not a huge moment, but it happens at the very beginning, and it was the first big laugh I got in this movie, and it's so early in the movie. It's right after the dude trying to sell shark fins to the other dude, which, by the way, the dude trying to sell the shark fins to the other dude, he could have been an actor who elevated material. He completely bought into his role, and I thought he did excellent.
I mean,
the other guy was not so great, but the one who was like the real gruff dude, like he was really good. But right after that, when the sharks start like coming onto the ship, the first one that pops up knocks over the guy and then just slurps him into his mouth, just like into his person. Not even, and it made me laugh so hard. I was like, oh, it set the tone. I was like, this is what we're dealing with when this shark slurps this person just into his mouth.
Yeah, the shark, so good. They're so good.
Just into his. So good. What is your train wreck moment?
I thought about the blood kissing, but like that could just be the bias, I guess. So mine is Robbie the bus driver, and I alluded to this earlier. It's the line. It has to be the line and the moment, because it's like it doesn't work if it's just guy standing there gets crushed with Hollywood sign.
My mom always told me Hollywood would kill me.
My mom always told me Hollywood would kill me, as the Hollywood sign proceeds to crush him like an anvil. Incredible. And then added on the fact that what you mentioned that I didn't even notice, that all the Hollywood signs end up landing in the same exact place too. So perfect.
It's targeted. It was targeted at that dude. The tornado, the Sharknado targeted that guy with the Hollywood sign. But what's also fun about that, and also makes it just a little bit worse, only because it made me wonder, and I've watched it twice now because as I always do. It I still don't know which letter it was. I think it was a D. I think it was the
Maybe.
D, but I don't know. They didn't pan out, which on a bigger budget you would have panned out to show me
Yeah.
to show the D in the ground where that guy used to stand. But yeah.
No, it's sci-fi. You can't show too much D on TV like that. You know what I mean? Sorry, bad joke. That was as bad as the blood time of the month joke. Sorry. Continue.
Let's talk about scoring. This one surprised me. I thought it was going to be lower because as we mentioned, I thought that this was not going to hit the I thought it was going to be too self-aware to be high on the list. It doesn't reach the heights of the great bad movies for me, but I thought it was going to be more on the just a not entertaining movie, or at least entertaining but not like self-aware, like just a comedy, which would have been lower. But it surprised me that it was a little bit higher than that. Not super high, but I am going to give it 3 grandfathers taken by sharks out of 5. What would you grade this movie?
All right, I'm going to give this 3 choppers out of... Wait, we're going to need a bigger chopper. 4 choppers out of 4. That's
Wow.
Yeah, right. That's good.
Kind of
right?
need a bigger chopper. That's good.
We can't. Can we first that last thing? I mean, it was a straight rip off of Jaws. I mean, literally on my laptop, I have a sticker that says "We're gonna need a bigger boat," or "You're gonna need a bigger boat," right? Or no, the line from Jaws is "You're," right?
Yeah.
And then in this movie, they do the wrong version and say "We're gonna need a bigger chopper."
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. So I'm in a full 4 with this. I think it's like. It's Birdemic with a budget, so it's infinitely more watchable than Birdemic, but it has a lot of the same merits and charms that Birdemic has for all the bad reasons it does. So
I agree. I think 4 is fair. It because I think just because it had a little bit more purposeful entertainment that worked, put it a little bit lower. But like I said, I thought it was going to be much lower just because I thought it was going to be too self-aware. But so that is Sharknado. We can talk about Mount Trashmore, but I don't think it makes it. Do you think it makes? Oh, if you got a case, let's hear it.
No. I don't have a case. I mean, like the 4 we have on there. For anyone who doesn't know, Mount Trashmore is our Mount Rushmore of bad movies. We put the 4 worst movies up there, or so bad they're good movies up there. Right now, it's The Room, Birdemic, Troll 2, and Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is like hard to crack. But like, if I'm gonna watch Sharknado before I watch probably Birdemic and Plan 9 from Outer Space. But like, those are so classic. I almost thought about like maybe this should take place of Birdemic, but like I don't know. It's a little, like you said, a little too. Like I think the fact that it's better than Birdemic makes it not as deserving for the Mount Trashmore, even though I like it better.
I agree.
And so bad it's good. So I'm comfortable leaving it off, but like if the Mount Trashmore is in South Dakota, like the Mount Rushmore is, and like the Sharknado's cycling in North Dakota, like it's there, it's close.
Right.
Not quite made it there yet, but I think it's like closer than a lot of films have been.
I can see that. I respect that, and yeah, I think Mount Trashmore stays where it is, but I think that honestly, just based on our conversation, I think I have always thought like, wow, this is nothing's really going to touch these 4. It's going to be hard to get something to touch these 4. But I actually expect probably Plan 9 to be replaced at some point in the future, just because I think that was the one we were not quite as in sync on with Plan 9. It's with how it is. So
the question is always, well, what will it be? You know, like will there be one that we're unanimously like, oh, that's it, and maybe it hasn't even been made yet. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows? Bad movies are made every day. But okay, well, that brings us to a matter of next month. Next month is June, and it is Pride Month, and so we're gonna have back on one of our frequent collaborators here on the Dyl Pickle Movie Network. He's been on this show before. Chris Baker Scott. He is going to be on. He is going to be on to discuss our Pride Month Framewreck, and this is one he actually suggested last year, but we ended up going with Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which if you haven't seen that episode, go watch it. Yeah, go watch that episode because it's one of my favorite episodes of our show, and it's one of my favorite movies that we watched just because I just really love that movie. So yeah, go watch Freddy, go watch that movie, and go watch that episode if you haven't seen it. But we're gonna have Chris back on to discuss a movie, and Dyl doesn't know what it is yet. This movie can only be found on YouTube, but it is there. It's legally there, and that's where you would have to watch it. So you just go to YouTube and search this movie. Search the title Ben and Arthur, which I have been assured. I've never seen this, but Chris has assured me it is the room of queer cinema. So I'm super excited.
Wow. Which is already the Citizen Kane of bad cinema. So it's going to be the Citizen Kane of bad cinema for queer cinema.
Yes. I'm super excited to get to watch this. So
we'll also have Chris and some other friendly faces. I can announce this now on a Pride Draft Day. We're doing Pride Draft Day. It's gonna be a super gay month next month, and we will still be carrying over the 2013 retrospective, which also leads me to one more announcement pertaining to the two of us. It's a non-Framewreck episode. It's not Framewreck, but it's kind of similar to what Crosby and I did with the Great American Film Off. We're looking at two films side by side, comparing them. But the unique twist is that we're looking at two films that are identical in premise, released in the same year with very, very similar aspects to them. And for the 2013 retrospective, we decided to look at movies from 2013 that have this kind of identity crisis with one another. And that is White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen from 2013. So early next month, as we're still doing this 2013 retrospective for May and June, you will be getting a video of Matt and I breaking down which one we basically think is better. So come off, like picking which is better, but instead of like 5 categories, we have a bunch of them. Like we're looking at each aspect in depth. We're gonna decide which one we like better, or if we hate both of them or love both of them. But if you want to check out more reviews of all the films of 2013 that aren't Oscar nominees, Marvel movies, or Sharknado, or White House Down, or Olympus Have Fallen, you can check out my Letterboxd, Dylan Randazzo, where I'm doing reviews. I'm trying to catch up on them now as we speak. I'm reviewing all the movies that year, even the small ones like Short Term 12, the big ones like Catching Fire, and all the ins and outs and in-betweens, Into Darknesses and Man of Steels and all that. So yeah, go check that out. It's going till the end of June. Matt, anything else on your end where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at MattmanXIII. That's 13 in Roman numerals. And I just want to leave you with this. I love Short Term 12. Everyone should go watch Short Term 12. Dyl mentioned it, and I haven't been able to think of anything else. So there we are.
There you go. And I'm also planning on doing, it's actually the 10-year anniversary of A24 as well. So I'm going to be looking, I think, at the 4 films that were released in 2013 that kickstarted A24, which is cool, which is like some long title movie with Bill Murray, directed by Roman Coppola, and then Ring and Ginger and Rosa, and then Spectacular Now, I think, and Spring Breakers. That's 5. So I'll be doing those 5 films, a video on those as well, just because also I'm going to be away for the first one, so I want to kind of have some programming that I can just like put out there, and part of it is going to be this great White House Down, Olympus Has Fallen discussion that we're actually going to record right after this behind the scenes. But yeah, it's going to be really fun looking at these movies 10 years later. But we looked at Sharknado 10 years later. It's so bad it's good. So then come back and watch this again. Give us another view. It's only an hour, 20 minutes of your time. This is actually the length of Sharknado, our episode here. So that's pretty cool. All right, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.
What a story, Mark.